So today I just want to quickly talk about something that I've noticed in a couple of your work is you know, um, the way that you are using typography in your design, right? So that needs a little more improvement. So I'm just going to share a couple of tips that you can use while you're, you know, um, creating typographic systems, in your design, right? So the first thing that I want to say is that when you're choosing a typeface, right? What are the thoughts? I'm just going to take a normal, let's say, okay. So when you're choosing a typeface to write something, right? Could be a heading or anything like that. The first thing is the choice of the typeface, right? What are you choosing to write this message, right? So let's say we have it like this. So when you're choosing a typeface, there is always something that you need to consider, right? Typeface has a personality. So when you're selecting a typeface, it conveys a certain personality, right? It has a certain vibe that when people look at it, they don't read the text, they actually feel it, right? They will look at it and say that. So let's say if I'm going to write something like, you know, um, care, right? So this is a text, right? I'm just going to duplicate it, okay? Now, if I change this to something else, like for instance, this, right? So immediately the personality changed, right? This actually looks more serious, right? More stronger. So I'm going to take care of you, right? So that's the reason a lot of hospitals, universities, big strong companies actually use this because it that is a bold personality, right? But where it comes to this is much more casual, right? This is something which you might actually see a lot in you know casual children related work and things like that. But here the care actually is different, right? The personality is different. Now if I take this and if I change this to let's say not an all caps thing, but now this thing, right? This is actually talking about a different personality than all of these things, right? This has more concern here, right? So this is a strong care. This is a very casual, you know, silly kind of care, not so serious stuff here. This actually seems a little more personal, right? This seems like, okay, somebody from the family is saying it, right? So this is happening in the user. Whenever you're designing something, this is some things that the user, a normal person who doesn't know about design, will start thinking, right? So you have to start thinking about that personality when you're choosing something. What is the personality that you want this to actually carry? So let's say if we are going to choose something which is, you know, something like this in care, right? Will it work with that word, right? So it doesn't, right? It doesn't care. It scares, right? It doesn't care. So that is how personality is important, and it need to go with what you are writing there, right? So it needs to be in connection with what you're writing here. So this actually happens, let's say, in any kind of typeface that you're using. So the first thing that you need to actually understand is the personality of the type that you're using, right? So a lot of things, when you actually go to see type repositories, like very this is not a professional type repository. This is a very free stuff, like, anybody can actually create fonts in here. If you go to these kind of stuff, right, and if you use something like I'm just saying, like, let's say horror, right? And if you go here and if you look at these typefaces here, right, it's basically made with a personality there. So you cannot actually take this and write anything else with it, right? Which is not scary. So there is a personality which is already set to it while they were designing these typefaces. So to use it for the wrong purposes, it might not actually work, right? So it's not a good idea to basically take these kind of typefaces to convey your idea in your design. It might look cool to you, right? But that's a problem. It might look cool only to you, right? The others might actually take it in a bad way. So this is not the right approach in typography. That is the reason I told you that if you actually go to resources, right, actual curated resources where you can see type uses. So, for instance, this is a Wix, gallery of website, right? So every typography in every design connects to what they are trying to say, right? So even if it's a big typography, even if it's a distorted typography, even if it's a simple typography like this, it connects to the story that they are trying to say. So you cannot break that personality, right? So always think about what is that you want to convey and use something which actually goes with what you're saying, right? So always try to understand the personality of typefaces. It's look at any inspirations. I mean, again, I wouldn't actually recommend Pinterest for any of you right now because your Pinterest might be curated based on your existing, likes. So you might be able to see good works in my Pinterest. That doesn't mean that Pinterest actually shows only good works, right? This is how I have trained it, right? And that's the reason I'm saying a lot of stuff which is from the famous designers out there. I'm not seeing amateur work. I've completely blocked student works in here, right? I'm following a lot of, high profile design agencies and I'm seeing this, right? So if I stop that, if I start it from a different Pinterest ID, this is not what I get. So that's the reason. Even Mohit actually told you the same thing, right? Go to something where it's curated. It is selected by somebody, right? Go there. Try to look at the typography uses there, right? What are the typefaces which are used? Let's get back to this, right? Another thing that you need to be very careful about is your spacing, right? Two kinds of spacing. So let's type something here. Okay, it's typewriting, right? So we used it with a bad typography. It looks like horrible right now. So let's go, let's reset all our parameters here. I'm just going to bring it back to 0 and we'll change the typeface to something a little more. Okay, we have Arial black regular, right? So we have this option, which is the default, right? When you're typing something like this is a default option right there, right? Now, we have a difficulty to say that this is a default spacing. When you're typing something, this is what Photoshop actually gave you. But, and we will have this genuine difficulty to find out that if, is this kerning okay? Is the space between the characters okay? Is the space between the sentences okay? We will have this difficulty because we are actually able to read this very comfortably. So care is everything. We are able to read it. So we think that this is okay. I'm able to read it right now. But visually, does it look good? Visually, is it balanced? Is something that our brain is not yet able to say. So one of the major techniques that designers use at this point is you basically go to edit and let's see. You can just go to transform and flip it horizontally. So now I have is the text which is flipped horizontally. I cannot read it, right? I am not able to comfortably. This is not. I'm not able to read it. So now, if you take this, and now if you do the spacing, right? So you are going to adjust the spacing on the inverted thing. You're not worried about reading it, right? You are looking at the balancing here, right? So this is slightly wider. So you just go here and you just arrange it like this, right? So you're doing it. Okay, so you're not looking at the readability of the text at this point. You just look at if it is balanced, right? So maybe I don't need this. I will just make it like negative 60. Okay, I'm just going with negative 60. Also, the line spacing, there is a little bit of gap here. I will just change that as well. Okay, maybe this. So I've done this, right? Still haven't read this, but I'm going to duplicate this again. Let's flip it back and see the difference, right? Duplicate this, go to edit, transform, flip horizontal, and we have something which is this, right? So this is the inverted one that we use to correct it, right? This is the default spacing, and this is the spacing that we corrected, right? Now, if you look at this, if you are familiar with a lot of good graphic design work, right? Designers will be using this whenever you go to Pinterest, whenever you go to proper websites and all that. This is a spacing that you see, right? Not this. This is the default one. And I've seen a lot of you actually leave it at default spacing. You don't care about this. You might not know where to stop or how to say that it's correct. So this is a really interesting technique where you flip it. You're not able to see or read the text properly. You're just looking at the shape visually, and you're trying to balance it, right? You just adjusted the kerning when it was horizontally flipped, and then we got it back here. Now, if you look at this, right, you can see the difference. It looks very amateurish, and this looks more professional, right? So everything is balanced. Everything is actually perfectly spaced. It seems like one unit, where this everything actually seems a little scattered and separated, right? So the second thing, right, when you are working with spacing, try to actually look at this. And also, yeah, here again, once again, I'm saying, if you are doubtful about okay how to use spacing and all that, always look at other designs, right? I wouldn't recommend this, like I wouldn't recommend Pinterest again, but I am confident that my Pinterest actually shows me good work. So I'm just going here and I'm telling you like how the spacing basically works, right? It's not wide apart, but if you look at these works, you can see how close it is, how tight it is, and that creates a really unique look, right? I hope this is clear. Two things that we discussed: personality, and another thing is this, right? The kerning. Now let's delete these parts, right? Let's delete all this. The third thing that we are going to discuss is how do you arrange your type, right? How do you basically arrange typography in a design? So I've created a video, and it's also briefly mentioned in my book, like what are the ways that you can basically arrange your text, in a design. So for instance, let's say I'm just writing something here, right? So hello. I'm just gonna go and adjust this a little bit. Then make it a little color. Okay. Let's change the background color also quickly to something. Okay, imagine I have something like this, a home page or something like that, right? And you have some text, some body text to work with, right? So let's say you have a name. I'm just going to change it to another font, right? I'll just use a monospace typeface. So just search for monospace. I'll get something here. I'm going to use something. I'm going to reduce the font size as well. So I have a couple of things, right? So let's say name, and I have the what the session is all about, an intro to design, date and time, 25/12/2024, and time is 10 a.m. Maybe happening at my website, right? So let's say we have this bunch of text, and it's a supporting text. So there is a main element. It could be an image or something like that, and we have a lot of text in here, right? So how do you manage uh, this text? So how do you fit this into this design? Where will you put it? There is subtext, so you can actually put it anywhere that you want, right? But where will you put it? So there are a couple of methods. I will share the link of that video also specifically. So think of this as a room, right? You're actually seeing this. Imagine this is a room, right? And there is a door here. Think about a door here, and people will walk in here, and this is the room that they will see, right? So think about it like that. The door is here, people are going to walk in, right? What will they see? They are seeing a lot of empty space here, and there is something called hello here, right? And when they are looking at it, they might not see what is here because this is blocking their view. They will have to walk through this side, they will come here, and they will see these elements, right? So think of any design that you are making as a room, right? And people are entering from the top left corner, because this is how people usually read anything, right? And see how the elements, think of all these things are furnitures, right? Furnitures. And then how will you put it, right? Where will you put it is the question. So there should be space for people to actually go and see everything. right? There should be some space around it so that they can walk around it. That's how you will actually put furnitures in your home, right? So you need to sort of do it like in that sort of way, um, when you consider it like that. So there are different ways of arranging typography. So this video basically explains how you can actually arrange supporting text, right? So I'm using an example here as well. This is the center element, and there is something. The first one is called corner type, right? So corner type, let's say we have all this data here. How will we actually work with corner type? I'll just quickly show you how will that work in here, right? Corner type is basically something where you're basically putting the text that you have into the corners of this design, right? So you're putting it like this, and you have this here. Now you're putting it like this. That's it, right? Corner typography, it created a very modern layout right now. We didn't do anything. We just distributed it to the corners, right? So it created that effect super quickly. So it will look somewhat like this, right? You add everything into the corner in whatever direction that you want. You can just change the orientation and things like that. And you add it to the corner. So in this particular typography, the text is actually coming on one side of the design, right? It's divided this frame, and every text is coming on the right of the design. You're going to put the text to one side of the design. So imagine that you are just fictionally dividing this into two pieces, right? You have this guideline here, and all the text basically goes into one side of this design, right? So here, I'm just going to put it, all of that stuff here, right? You divided that. You can actually put it into this side also, right? Divided this design into two pieces and you arranged it. So that was where you, the first one was where you put everything into corners. The second was where you put everything into one side of your design, right? It's balanced in that sort of way. Now, another kind of design is where you actually balance it, right? So again, we are going to take the same centerpiece, but instead of putting everything to one side, you're going to balance it like this. So I'm going to put two stuff here, right? Like this. So now what I have is a balanced design, right? So one side is going to have both the sides, the type is actually balanced, right? So you can create an effect like that. You can just distribute the sizes. Um, you can make it maybe slightly above this, but it's a balanced design right now. Another kind of design is called magnetic. So these are not technical terms, right? These are terms that I came up with, so don't get confused, right? So, but you watch the video, you'll understand this clearly. But what happens is that we have a centerpiece, right? What if this was a magnet and everything was attracting this, right? So everything was basically attracting this as a magnet, right? So the date, it is attracting here, and maybe the text is sort of like attracting to this, and something like this. Put it very close to this, right? This is magnetic typography. If you look at, again, if you go to Behance or, sorry, Pinterest, this one. So on a primary element, things are actually being attached and getting attached as a magnet, right? Uh, Here you can see magnetic typography. Here. So a lot of examples on that, right? Very trendy move. So you should actually learn about this as well. Now, another kind, right? This is going to be very, very weird, right? So it's called banded typography. So banded typography is something like this, right? You're just randomly placing without a particular idea in your mind, you're just banding it, right? So you're creating like fictional lines, and you're placing this element in that particular horizontal line anywhere that you want. So you can actually put it here or here or here, but it doesn't actually go to the next line. You're imagining that line, and this can be banded anywhere in here, right? So these are sections. So this particular section is all for Mahesh Ravi, so he can go anywhere. He cannot move downwards or upwards. This particular section is for this line. It can actually go only sidewise. So even this, right, I can just separate it like this, right? So two different sections, I can keep it anywhere that I want. and I can maybe band it a little like this. So this is called banded design, right? You're imagining horizontal sections for each of it, and it can only move horizontally, right? Slightly, difficult to master, but you can, when you get the right exposure and all those things, you will be able to do this very effectively, right? So try these exercises. Get better with typography. We will actually talk about the other elements as well, like colors, shapes, and things like that. But this is going to be a very useful, simple, very casual video that I just thought of right now. And go with it. I'll also link the other video here for a detailed understanding of how this systems actually work. Um, I would also recommend a reading called Typographic Systems. So by Kimberly Alan. So she actually made a book called Typographic Systems with these kind of systems: axial, radial, dilatational, random, grid, modular, transitional, and all that. And it has all those wireframe rules, and it will show a lot of examples on how you can actually play with the typography systems and all that. But if you cannot do that, just follow the systems that I just told you right now. That is good enough, right? But combine this with your exposure. If you're just looking for at one source for inspiration, that will not come. You have to be wide open for inspiration that can happen from any direction, right? So be open to it, and try making something out. And I will see you soon. Thank you.